So today we're going to be working on getting started with Firefox. If you don't know, Firefox is one of the major browsers that I hope some of you use at some point or are using currently. Um, and so we're going to try building this. It's an open source project, so you can kind of do what we learned in the first session, like kind of do a clone and then learn to build it and then run Firefox on your own computer. And what's cool about this is you're not just running a binary or like a compiled thing. You're running actual code, and it can take a bit of space, about 10 gigs, maybe 7 to 10 gigs of space. Depends on what kind of thing you're getting. And then you're gonna run it. You're gonna try running it. This can also take a bit of time, so we're gonna like talk a bit about contributing to Firefox as an open source project. It's a bit different to normal projects because of some reasons, and I'll talk about that. And so we'll be going over all that today. So let's see this. We're going to be going over what I just said, cloning, building Firefox, learning how to actually navigate the code base. It is huge. And they have internal tooling, which is available for us to use to kind of just navigate the code base and learn how to actually solve a bug. And then just learn about how to submit what we fix to Firefox to get reviewed. Okay, cool. So about me, I'm Harshit. I did my PUI co-op at Mozilla, so I've worked there for a year and 4 months. It was amazing. I got to work on a lot of cool stuff. I worked on the privacy team, and that's kind of where I learned a lot of this. And I'm still contributing, which is so cool. I can still contribute, still use all that knowledge I got. And I'm hoping to see some of you actually get some stuff, some code into the massive Firefox code base. I also play guitar. Yeah, if you want to jam, let me know. And this is how you reach me on Instagram, or I have a website. You can get my LinkedIn from that if you want to. Okay, cool. So first thing that's kind of different for Firefox is that it is not in Git. Firefox's code base is old. It is from like the 2000s, when even earlier than the 2000s, when this other version control system called Mercurial was just as popular as Git. And well, the Mozillians back then were like, we're going to go with Mercurial. And there were a lot of reasons for that. Mercurial has its perks over Git, but Git did end up getting more popular. But Firefox is still hosted on its own Mercurial server. So if you were to go to this page, edg.mozilla.org, edg is just a technical name for Mercury, you will see that the servers which hold all the Firefox code base is set over here. So not GitHub or something else. This is where it is. And they run their own servers for storing their code base and doing all this stuff. So that's just like a cool exercise. You go, oh, sorry. Gonna go here, gonna go to edg.mozilla.org. And you can see all the different types of versions that are running for Firefox on over here. So that's like the first big difference. This is not Git. This is kind of what we learned in the first class. But we're working with Mercurial. But since most developers use Git right now, Firefox, Mozilla does have like internal tooling to work around that, and we'll see. And I think they're in the process of switching to Git over the year, but for now we're still using Mercurial. And so yeah, that's something we have. Okay, cool. So okay, so just as we're talking, Mercurial, Git, all those things. You can choose whatever version control you want to use. I would suggest use Git because that's what every other company or anything you work on is going to use. And Firefox is also switching to GitHub. If you want to try out Mercurial, feel free to. It's a different workflow. It's definitely interesting, having to wrap your head around like how to work, because Git is a very branch-based workflow. Mercurial has a bit different. And I wanted to suggest, and then I wanted to suggest this one more version control system that I learned over my time at Firefox called Jujitsu. You can search it up. It's called Jujitsu VCS. It was created internally at Google to be used for non-branch-based workflows because people were kind of annoyed. They don't like having to create a branch for every single thing and then branch and branch. So instead of that, how Jujitsu kind of works is it creates, anytime you make a change, it creates its own, they call it, I don't even know what they call it. They call it's something else. And it's a very interesting workflow. I can go over it a little bit later, but this is a cool alternative. And the best part about this is builds on Git. So any Git repository you have, you can use with JJ. So Jujitsu, because you can do that if you want to. I think it's a cool workflow. I think it's something that people are learning, but it is very different from Git. So definitely something you can explore if you want to. Okay, let's get to actually trying to get Firefox. So it's a little bit different than what we do with GitHub stuff, but kind of similar. We're just cloning another website, a bunch of code, and then onto your local web machine, and then we're just going to try to do that. So I would go to this link that I have on the slides. I'll put it on Discord if you need it inside of Firefox. So if you go to this link, you should be able to, whoops, you should be able to go find out something. So let me know when you guys are on that link, and then we can continue from there. And access the link. Okay. Okay, cool. So what we're seeing here, first of all, is this is the Firefox source docs website where a bunch of like technical stuff exists. This is not the only way to see some documentation. There's a bunch of different ways, but source docs is what's written internally to be used for any kind of code. So like reasonings behind any kind of code structure or anything like that would be over here. And of course, getting started with too. So what we're looking at is the contributors quick reference. And here there's going to be multiple different things, but all we care about is the quick reference because we want to get started. So let's click on that. And now there's a bunch of different things. So depending on your system, you're going to have to do something a little differently. So just look for, if you have Windows, Mac, or Linux, just follow along to those steps. So for Windows, you need to do a couple of different things. You need to, and then for Mac, you do a couple, it's about the same, but just a bit different. So I would definitely try getting started with this. So I have a Mac, so I'm going to go look up how to get set up Firefox on Mac OS and Linux. And then for Mac, I guess I can directly do this. Let's see. I'm going to go here. I'm going to actually try it again. And then it's gonna, oh, well, didn't do it? That's crazy. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So that should install a bootstrap.py file. I think that's what it's doing. Were you guys able to kind of find where you need to be? Does anyone need any help? Feel free to use the chat as well if you need it. But this is kind of where we are. WinGet doesn't work for me. Do you know what error you're getting? Are you on Windows? Yeah, I'm guessing you are. Internal, I would Google it. I'm not sure about that. It's probably just not installed. So I would just put that, look up Stack Overflow. What does it say? Yeah, it's a third-party program, so I would try just installing it first, and then going from there. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So once you do that first, so one thing I will say is like don't just quickly go for it. Just do the curl command or the winget command, just so you get that bootstrap file. And then we're going to do the bootstrap together just because I think they updated this documentation, but this is great. We want to be using Git. So let me know when you guys are done with getting the bootstrap file. I'm going to just go for it. So one thing we have to remember is when you do the bootstrap, originally it was written to do it with Mercurial. So it would just fetch it in the Mercurial way. We're going to do --vcs equals git. It's nice that they have it here. This just means that we're going to be installing git cinnabar along with all the stuff. And I think some more dependencies on figuring everything out. We have a really complex system in the back. And what this git cinnabar thing does is it kind of just converts git commands to Mercurial. So we're still using a Mercurial code base. You can just use Mercurial, but we'll have this git cinnabar thing. And what that does is you can use git as you normally would now. And that's kind of nice. So now you can use Git on this Mercurial repository. and do your normal workflows that you would. So we're going to run that. And this is what usually takes a bunch of time. Just going to do that. And that's going to take a long time. So I'm not going to run all of it because I already have Firefox installed. But this is what usually takes the most time. We have time, so I don't mind waiting like 2 minutes for you guys to figure that out. Yeah, I think a lot of you are getting that issue. Like wget is like something that doesn't come installed with Firefox, so just with Windows, so just install that. Oh yes, okay, so you have a good machine if you reached that already, but if that's what it's saying, then you should do Firefox for desktop. I think that's the one. I can't remember what it usually says. We'll get there. Yep, okay, I'm glad that's one of the options. Yeah, so Firefox for desktop is what we're trying to build. Yeah, I'm just running it so I can make sure that all of you are seeing kind of something similar to what I'm running. Yeah. Uh, okay, gonna take this. Full screen it. Go back. Something. Okay. I think I'm gonna start talking about a bit more of the stuff just because we might be running short on time. So feel free to keep following along. But while everything is kind of building, I'm going to talk about how development works for Firefox. There's a bunch of different platforms, but they're super useful. The reason we have so many is just you need some different things to track different things because it's such a big code base of so many different contributors. And this is also kind of what happens internally at any company you work for. This is just all open source, so you get to see it too. Usually there's a bunch of internal tooling and things like that that you might use for different purposes. There's sometimes full teams assigned to creating these things, which is what happens at Firefox as well, and Mozilla. But luckily we get to kind of use these for ourselves. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Bugzilla. When you want to kind of develop for Firefox, you need to find a bug to fix. And Bugzilla is where we do that. So usually GitHub issues is what this kind of maps to. People usually make an issue and then someone's like, I want to work on this issue. And you kind of do the same thing, but on Bugzilla. So let's get to Bugzilla and see what's happening there. So it's bugzilla.mozilla.org. So I'll put it on Discord again. So we're gonna have that. This is kind of where you do all you find all the bugs, they're triaged into different components. This is not only for Firefox, it's also for a bunch of Mozilla things. But this is where you're going to be looking for your bugs. This is where you're going to be communicating with people who control different components in Mozilla who work on Firefox like full time. Yeah, so this is kind of where you're going to be doing it. So make an account because you're going to need one to comment or make any changes, things like that. What I'm going to show you to do is, so once you make your account, which shouldn't be too bad, you're going to try to find good first bugs. So one easy way is to do an advanced search. It sounds advanced, but all we're gonna do is put the keyword good first bug in here. You can obviously choose the exact product, exact component to narrow it down to what you kind of want to work on. One thing I would point out is Firefox is not like a full product here. There's a bunch of different components of Firefox. So like just clicking Firefox won't get you everything related to Firefox. So for example, Toolkit. Toolkit is where a lot of the privacy and anti-tracking work for Firefox goes into. And that wouldn't be as obvious if we were just looking at this. And so if I just selected Toolkit, good first bug, and did a search, that should get me a bunch of different bugs that you can potentially work on. Yeah. So for example, this is data sanitization. What you would do is once you find a bug that you kind of want to work on, you see the title, you're like, okay, this seems interesting. Maybe I can look into this. It seems not too hard. You go to the bug. It's going to have a bunch of information. So which product, component, version is for what version was this like tested on, was broken last. Priority and severity is for how bad this is for people. Usually good first bugs are not too bad because they would ideally be fixed if they were higher priority, higher severity. But yeah. So you have a description by whoever made the bug. You can read through it. There's usually a steps to reproduce in every bug. If the reporter hasn't given a steps to reproduce, you can just ask them for one because that's kind of important to know how do you reproduce this bug exactly. And then you try reproducing it yourself. And you see, okay, this is something you want to work on. This seems interesting. And the first thing you do, just as you would do on GitHub, is you ask if you can work on this bug. It's very important you add a comment at the bottom and just be like, can I work on this? Because you never know, somebody else might be working on it, just didn't like assign themselves to it. Or maybe the triage owner or the team has like a plan for this to be done at some point. So always ask so that you're not wasting your time. So ask, usually the triage owner will respond or whoever is responsible. And one great way to make sure this comment of yours gets into their email is to use this request information from thing. So you click on the checkbox, and there's a bunch of options. You can also specifically choose someone, but usually you would click on triage owner, and then you would ask, this will just basically go into their email, be like, this person commented, and then like it's kind of at the top, usually people will respond. And that's how you know. For example, if I was to request information from myself, it will show up on my Bugzilla under as a notification. Like it's like, and it's tracked in Mozilla if how often you respond to these. And it's like, they make sure that you kind of have as less of these as possible. So first thing, find a bug you want to work on, go to the comments, ask if you can work on it. Usually someone will be like, yes, of course, go for it, do it. And then you can start working on it. Okay. So I hope that's clear. Bugzilla is where you're going to be chatting with a lot of people. Going to talk a lot to different people who work inside of the organization, or even other contributors just like you who are trying to work on stuff. Okay, cool. So make sure to make an account for this. Okay, yep. So exactly these things. One thing that I wanted to mention was there is like a website that Mozilla runs called Contribute for like first contributions. I personally haven't had to use it or haven't had the chance to use it, but I think it's made for finding like good first bugs and things like that. I would just use Bugzilla, but this is something that exists. You can look for different things. It has a better like UI to like look for things. And so yeah, if you want to try it out, definitely like try it out. So there's a bunch of bugs, but I'm not sure how well this is kind of maintained anymore. So I'll put a link to it, but yeah. Okay, cool. Next is you're gonna want to create a patch. Once you kind of find the bug, you get the good, like, yes, you can work on this. You're gonna try and create a patch. So what a patch is, just a fix, a commit, or anything of that sort. It can be multiple commits, but yeah, similar to how you would just do other open source things, similar thing here. The big difference is you don't kind of need to create a branch and make a PR. So that's a very GitHub workflow. The Firefox workflow doesn't require you to make a PR in the sense because you can't actually merge anything because they have sheriffs and different types of people looking after what code goes into the Firefox code base. But I would recommend creating a branch because it's very easy to keep track of what you're working on because you might have multiple things you're working on and things like that. So yes, so create a branch, start writing your code, make your changes, test it out. I would highly suggest write a test, and that we can cover later once we start like working on bugs, how to write a test, because that's something that they look for. And then I'm gonna show you how to make that patch to get it reviewed. One thing I wanted to mention was Git worktree is useful. So if you're working on backend stuff, you have to do big builds every time, which can take 40 minutes, an hour every single time you make a change. And that's kind of annoying, especially if you're working on two different bugs and then you switch and then you need to do a build again. So Git worktree kind of keeps two copies of your builds, and it kind of works just like branches. I would try it out if you do end up doing like multiple bugs. And you can use this even for like your GitHub, anything you work on usually. It's super powerful. I think it's great if you have to do big builds for things. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to point out. Okay. So creating a patch would be you make the change, you do git add whatever files you want, exactly like we learned, and then git commit. Ideally, you want to split up these commits into multiple parts so that it's easy to review. But since you're just starting out, just this is something that you learn with practice and see things because things can get big. But I'm hoping good first bugs isn't too big a patch. So you do your git commit -m, however you want to write it. Writing a commit is a little, you need to have a certain syntax to say, because this needs to go to this platform called Fabricator. So Fabricator is also basically the review. Like when you make a PR on GitHub, similar thing. When you make a patch, you want to get it reviewed, it goes into Fabricator. And so you need to have, when you do your bootstrap, you do all your stuff, mozfab, it's this command on your command line that gets installed. You can use that to automatically make these PRs. It finds like your latest like few commits and then submits them for review. Your commit has to be in a certain syntax to find what bug you're trying to fix and who you want to get it reviewed by. So that's syntax. I'm hoping it's somewhere here. Yeah. So your commit message is bug whatever number. So if you were working on this bug, there is a bug number here. So bug 191, whatever. And then just exactly what you fixed. And then you need R. There's different ways of doing this. I always just use the question mark, R question mark reviewer name. How do you find that reviewer name? You can look for that on Fabricator or you can see on Bugzilla. Usually they have like a short form or something like that, and you can look for that, and that makes it easy. You can also request reviews from full teams, but hopefully we don't have to do that right now. Ideally, just request it from a triage owner. So you'll see that there's a triage owner for whatever bug you work on. So you just put R question mark S Clements. And then this is kind of going to go to Fabricator automatically once you run mozfab submit, which should be installed automatically. So when you do that, it's going to go into Fabricator. It's going to be like, okay, this bug is being worked on, and I'm going to just show you what that looks like and who needs to review it. So again, you're kind of pinging someone's email. Gosh. Yeah. Fabricator. I should have had this open, but is it loading? Basically, you'll make that patch. Someone will review it. I'm just gonna wait for this to open. While this is opening, I wanted to ask, did all of your bootstraps finish running? Yeah? No? 47? Yeah, it can take a second. The build will take longer. Yeah. What about everybody else? 26? Okay. Okay. Well, you're gonna kind of see this screen that I'm showing you once your bootstrap kind of finishes. You should just clean up the bootstrap.py. You don't need it anymore right now, so just I'm just gonna trust Y, clean it up. And then it's gonna do a bunch of stuff, which is so nice. Like they built this, it's really easy to just get all your dependencies. You just run a couple of commands, and then you're gonna get this screen. So it's gonna ask, please choose the Firefox version that you want to build, and then we're gonna go with Firefox for desktop. So yes, it was 2, and then it'll do a bunch of stuff. So while we wait for that, Fabricator finally opened. So this is kind of what it looks like. Fabricator, it's very similar to GitHub, but it's its own thing that Mozilla runs. And you have a bunch of ready to lands, a bunch of ready to updates and waiting on authors. So ready to update shows up are the bugs that you worked on. They got a review and they need revision. So similar to GitHub's need revisions or ready to merge, similar things. So you're going to go into, I'm not going to create a new patch right now, but I'll show you one that I was working on. Okay, well, I guess you'll see the comments that I was getting on my patch. And this is all publicly available, so you can actually Google and find this exact bug. Like if I could like link this for you guys to see. And you can see like people working on it. Anyways, so this is kind of what it looks like. So the bug number, I split it into parts. That shouldn't be there. That was my bad, but it still was smart enough to figure out what PBZ meant. So you can click on the bug, exactly what you're working on and who the reviewer is. The patch is going to kind of look like this, just what kind of code on GitHub also looks like. And then your reviewer is going to give a bunch of comments. You are going to try and fix those, and then you're going to try and submit those. One thing that's different is this isn't branch-based commit stuff. So you can't just add a new commit saying fix review and submit that. You're supposed to amend to whatever commit you're fixing. So this is like very commit-based development. So it's, if you want to learn that, it's called git commit -- amend. And we can learn the whole workflow for working with the different commits, but hopefully you don't have to work on that right now. So you just use git commit -- amend, and whatever new change you make, it gets merged into or rebased into your current commit. And then you push it. So what happens is whatever you're seeing on the screen will update to the new thing without adding a new commit. So it just like kind of updates your commit. Remember, you can always go back. We'll learn about reflog eventually, but that's kind of how you want to do it. It's not branch based, so don't create a new commit, because if you create a new commit, Fabricator will create a new patch with those review change commits and then add it on top of the stack. So it'll work like this. But we want it to be a clean history to be pushed in there. So try to keep everything in the commit. Split up commits if you need to, and mention why you split it up, where you split it up, and then push it there. And then the reviewer will look at it and then tell what's wrong, what's good, and if it's good to land. So for example, the previous commit was not good to land. I'm still making changes, but I will update that commit and then push it. But this one is accepted. You don't have to do anything once it's accepted. Since ideally, I don't usually you wouldn't have access to push stuff to things. So once everything's accepted, ideally the reviewer would just push it. It's on this thing called Lando, which automatically merges code into Firefox code base after running a bunch of unit tests and things like that automatically. And then it kind of goes in. But if a reviewer for some reason doesn't do that, just use Bugzilla comment saying, hey, or you can even use Fabricator. Fabricator does have a way of just keep messaging here. And then just ask for like, hey, can you guys push this? And that should be good. And that's it. At that point, your code will be merging into Firefox. And then you can actually, if you have Firefox nightly installed, within like a day or two, see your changes on the running build. And then yeah, if it doesn't break anything within a month, because Firefox does monthly releases, it'll go into the main build, which has about 250 million users. So your code is gonna hit that many people. So it's pretty cool, pretty impactful, and hopefully not too bad to work on. Okay. Yeah, all of these just always run yes. So this install, I think, gets Cinnabar at some point. Don't even know. But anyways, do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Like, well, where like our version of Nightly is no longer up to date. How do we
Oh, that's a good question. So once you have your build, um, it's just normal git pulls. You do git pull dash R, and that should ideally get everything back. Like, but make sure you're on the mainstream branch. So here it's not main, it's bookmark slash central. So if you look at your branches, I can show them to you where I'm not installing stuff. So if I look at git branch, there's this thing called bookmark central. So that's kind of where our upstream is, which is where the Mercurial servers are. And then we can do like git pull dash, oops, dash R, and that should pull the latest changes. This is going to be a lot of changes. It's been a while since I pulled. Um, and that should pull all the latest changes from Mercurial, and you should have the latest stuff. One way to just verify that is just do git log and see the last change, because there's a lot of changes coming into Firefox. You will see something within the last day or today itself. So yeah, that's just one way to verify it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Uh, So you submit. Okay, that's all I have here. You chat. Um, doesn't recognize my Git log. I'm trying to gotta fix it. The Mozilla build shell. Um, were you able to get it? Let's see. Or Windows was a little bit harder when I remember when I did it too. I originally did this on a Windows, and that was like more than a year ago. Um, Supported version of Windows. Which Windows are you actually? Just make sure. Like, I think it's above 7 works. Uh, Windows 10. Oh, 7 does not work. 10 and 11. So if anyone's on Windows 7, I hope not. That won't work. Um, yeah. Fulfill. Okay, I can help you out individually. We need, yeah. Yeah, so remember to make your Bugzilla account. Fabricator has this API token thing, but just log into Fabricator with Bugzilla. You should be good. Um, and then look for a good first bug you want to work on. Once you guys have that, like I think we can all like work sessions, try to figure out bugs. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention how to actually navigate that code base. Uh, it's a big code base. Forgot to put a slide for that. But luckily we have this thing called search box. I'm a bit open. Yeah. So this thing called search box is basically just a massive search for the code base. Um, so basically, if you're trying to fix a bug, I don't know, about anything, I'm gonna try looking for a string. Let's see. A good example is usually string. So let's say looking for a bug related to clear recent history. I could look up this string and it'll show me a bunch of different occurrences of this exact string. You can make it case sensitive or not in the code base. So easy way to like kind of just check out where this is kind of referenced and then go backwards from that. I recommend doing that because it's easier to find your way around it. It's a big code base. You'll almost never know the exact entry point to something unless you already have some knowledge of it. I would use, oh, that's not what I meant. Whoa, okay. I would use the debugger, JS debugger, to kind of find out like different things and look for things. But a string is great. But of course, if you're completely like confused, just ask on Bugzilla for some help on how to get started, and someone will help you out. Everyone in the community is super helpful. With Searchbox, another great thing is if I look for any kind of, you can also look for functions, files, tests, not just string occurrences. So I'm looking for this thing called storage access API. The first two things are what files are related to this. So I can just click on it and then you can see the whole code. You can also look for some definitions that are related to this, .h files, and then a bunch of different occurrences. So if I click on any one of these, maybe it's something I'm looking for, it'll take me to that exact file, that exact line. So that makes it really easy to kind of look for things. And if you're kind of confused about what's going on or why something was done a certain way, there's the blame. So you can kind of just hover over on the left and you can find out like, oh, it was this person who I need to reach out to kind of ask like what's going on here. Their email is there, you can email them, but I would suggest Bugzilla request information. That's just better. And that way you can kind of work on these things. Obviously, first think about it, try to figure out stuff, Google, look at source docs before making that request, because we don't want to ask too many questions to these engineers who are working a lot. So definitely do your research before you ask a question to show that you've tried to do something and you're a bit confused. But we can get into that once we have like a bug that all of you want to kind of work on. Spend some time looking for that and trying to get Firefox to run locally on your machines. Once you have everything kind of done, by the way, all you have to do is once you've done the bootstrap, everything is good. You see this, you just have to do /mock, which is like this is how you run stuff for Firefox. You just do build. Oh, whoa. Okay. I need to go into the directory. My bad. Mock build. And then it's just going to build Firefox for you. And then you're going to do mock run. So build and run is kind of what you need to do. Yeah. Build can take a while. It can, depending on the machine. It takes like 30 minutes on mine, and I have an M2 Pro. It takes a lot of time. So yeah, that's how it kind of works. So yeah, I would suggest look for a good first bug, get it running on your computer. It's kind of cool to see your own browser kind of running on your own computer. You can make fun changes if you want, just for fun. And then look for a good first bug. Once you find that, feel free to obviously comment and ask if you can work on it. But we'll try to meet up and figure out stuff together, see how to make that commit, see how to push it to Fabricator and get it reviewed, and things like that. And once you have that going, hopefully in the future, if you're like really interested, we can get some mini projects from Mozilla going that you can get into the Firefox code base. Yeah, I think that's the full workflow. Yeah, okay. Stop recording.